Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
SpaceX is now very important for space missions in the United States. Many people say SpaceX is essential for America's success in space. The company is currently very strong and leads in many areas of space travel. Without SpaceX, the U.S. government cannot send its important technology into orbit. For many years, the U.S. government and SpaceX have worked together well. They have a good relationship that helps both sides. The government needs a partner that can work fast. SpaceX needed a big customer like the government. The government has given SpaceX many contracts worth billions of dollars for different tasks. This relationship works because each side gets what it cannot do alone. For example, NASA can send supplies to space without building its own factories. SpaceX gets steady work and trust from the government. Before SpaceX, the U.S. government had its own space program. It used the Space Shuttle. But the Space Shuttle program ended. The shuttles were retired because they became too expensive and had many problems. Also, there were two sad accidents, one in 1986 and another in 2003, where shuttles were lost. So, the government stopped flying its own spaceships. Now, the U.S. depends on SpaceX for many things in space. If SpaceX could not fly its rockets, the U.S. would have to ask other countries for help. This is not good for a powerful country that needs to send satellites and people into space often. Recently, there was a public argument between Elon Musk, who started SpaceX, and former President Donald Trump. Mr. Trump said he would stop government payments and contracts to SpaceX. In return, Elon Musk suggested he might stop using the Dragon spacecraft, which NASA uses for astronauts. This argument showed that relying on one company could be risky. Even though Donald Trump and Elon Musk later stopped these threats, the argument made people ask a big question. How did the United States become so dependent on SpaceX? This question is important because it shows a new challenge for America's future in space. 2. A new company starts. Elon Musk started a company called SpaceX in 2002. He used money he had made from another company, PayPal, to begin this new venture. His main idea was to build rockets that were much cheaper than what was available. At that time, sending anything to space was extremely expensive. A company named United Launch Alliance, ULA, held a monopoly. This meant ULA was the only big provider of rocket launches for the U.S. government. You are a professional documentary film narrator. Elon Musk wanted to challenge this high price and offer a different option. SpaceX worked to develop its first rocket, named Falcon 1. This rocket was designed to put small things into orbit. The company was small and did not have a lot of money. They used a fast way of working, testing rockets and fixing problems quickly. However, the first 3 flights of Falcon 1 did not go well. They all failed to reach space, causing big problems for the company. These failures were public, and many people thought SpaceX would not succeed. Money became very tight, and the company was close to having no funds left. Salaries for employees were sometimes delayed, and suppliers were unsure about working with SpaceX. The company was on the brink of bankruptcy. But in 2008, an important event saved SpaceX. NASA, the U.S. space agency, gave the company a very large contract. This contract was worth $1.6 billion. It was for a program called Commercial Resupply Services. With this money, SpaceX was tasked to build a new, more powerful rocket named Falcon 9. They also had to create a special spaceship called Dragon. Falcon 9 and Dragon would carry important cargo and supplies to the International Space Station, ISS. This contract asked for 12 missions to the ISS. The NASA contract was awarded just months after Falcon 1 finally made a successful flight on its fourth try. This crucial support from NASA helped SpaceX continue its work and grow, becoming a key player in space. 3. NASA's new plan. NASA needed a new way to send supplies and people to the International Space Station. America's old space shuttle program was very expensive, costing billions of dollars each year. It also did not make space travel cheaper or more common, as people had hoped. Because of these issues, NASA looked for a different approach. The agency started a new plan: to pay private companies for space missions. This new plan first focused on sending cargo. In 2008, NASA launched a program called Commercial Resupply Services. It chose to pay companies for successfully delivering cargo rather than just for their work. This was a big change for NASA. SpaceX won a contract worth $1.6 billion. The company would use its Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon capsule. Another company, Orbital Sciences, also received a contract for $1.9 billion. Orbital Sciences built its Antares rocket and Cygnus spacecraft. Both companies began carrying important supplies to the space station. This dual approach meant if one company had problems, the other could still deliver items. It proved that using private companies could work for NASA. Later, NASA wanted private companies to also send astronauts into space. Lori Garver, a former important NASA official, helped start this idea. In 2009 and 2010, NASA talked with the U.S. Congress about this new plan. This program became known as Commercial Crew. It allowed private companies to build spaceships for human spaceflight, aiming to lower costs and make space travel safer. In 2014, NASA selected 2 companies for the Commercial Crew program. SpaceX was awarded $2.6 billion. Boeing, a well-known aerospace company, received $4.2 billion. Both companies were tasked with developing new vehicles to transport astronauts to and from the space station. SpaceX created its Crew Dragon spaceship, which would launch on its Falcon 9 rocket. Boeing worked on its CST-100 Starliner, designed to fly on United Launch Alliance rockets. This decision marked a very important change for NASA. Instead of owning and operating all its own spacecraft, the agency would now purchase services from private companies. 4. The first astronauts fly. In 2020, SpaceX achieved a major goal. Its Crew Dragon spaceship, powered by the Falcon 9 rocket, launched 2 NASA astronauts, Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley. They traveled safely to the International Space Station. This event marked a historic moment for America. It was the first time in 9 years that astronauts had launched into space from United States land. Before this flight, since the space shuttle stopped flying in 2011, the U.S. government had relied on Russia. American astronauts had to use Russian Soyuz rockets to reach the orbital outpost. This important flight changed how America sent people to space. SpaceX showed that a private company could successfully carry astronauts. While SpaceX reached this big achievement, the other company, Boeing, faced many difficulties. Boeing also had a contract from NASA to build a spaceship for astronauts called Starliner. However, their Starliner spaceship had several technical problems. It did not successfully finish a full mission with a crew for a long time, unlike SpaceX's Dragon. Later, in 2024, Boeing's Starliner had more issues during a crewed flight. It took 2 astronauts to the space station, but it could not bring them back as planned. The Starliner capsule had to return to Earth without its crew. The 2 astronauts had to wait much longer than expected. A SpaceX Dragon capsule eventually brought them home safely, months later than first planned. This event clearly showed SpaceX's reliability and its key role for NASA. The success of SpaceX's first crewed mission opened a new chapter in space travel. It ended America's need to rely on other countries for human spaceflight. It also highlighted the different progress made by the 2 companies. SpaceX had overcome its early hurdles to become a leading provider of space transport. Boeing, however, continued to work through its own problems to make its crewed spacecraft fully operational. This period truly redefined the future of U.S. space missions. 5. The biggest company in space. Today, SpaceX holds a very strong position in the space industry. It launches more rockets than any other company or even any country in the world. In 2024, SpaceX launched 134 orbital missions. This number was more than twice as many as the next closest launch provider. This means 83% of all spacecraft sent into orbit that year flew on a SpaceX rocket. This high number of launches shows how efficiently SpaceX can build, test, and fly its rockets, often launching every few days. This fast pace allows the company to learn and improve quickly, making it a leader in space travel. SpaceX's Starlink satellites also play a large role in its market position. In 2024, 65% of all active satellites orbiting Earth were part of the Starlink network. These thousands of small satellites form a large network that provides internet access across the globe, especially in remote areas. SpaceX also makes special user terminals, which are small dishes for people to connect to Starlink Internet. These are mass-produced in large factories, similar to how everyday electronics are made. For the United States, SpaceX has become crucial. Its Dragon capsule and Falcon 9 rocket are now the main way NASA sends astronauts and important supplies to the International Space Station. America greatly depends on SpaceX for these vital missions. The Dragon capsules routinely deliver scientific experiments, spare parts, and fresh food. The Crew Dragon spacecraft safely take astronauts to and from the station. These regular missions have made SpaceX a reliable partner for human spaceflight. Beyond space travel, Starlink provides important internet access globally. It is especially vital during wars or after natural disasters like hurricanes or wildfires. In such difficult times, when regular communication systems are often damaged, Starlink offers a reliable way for people, aid groups, and even military units to stay connected. This makes Starlink a strategic asset, providing a critical service when it is needed most. Furthermore, SpaceX is developing a new, very large rocket named Starship. This rocket, made of shining stainless steel, is designed to be the biggest and most powerful rocket ever built. Its goal is to make space travel much cheaper by being fully reusable, like an airplane. Although Starship is still in testing, it is a key part of America's plan to return astronauts to the Moon. NASA plans to use Starship as the lunar lander for its Artemis program, carrying people from lunar orbit down to the Moon's surface. Each test flight helps the company learn more about this ambitious project for future space exploration. 6. How SpaceX got so good. SpaceX became very successful for a few important reasons. One main reason is that the company builds almost all of its rocket parts itself. This is called vertical integration. They make their own engines, rocket bodies, and computer systems in their factories. This way, SpaceX can control how much things cost and how fast they can build new parts. Engineers can also make changes to designs very quickly because everything is done in one place. This makes the company work much faster and more effectively than others. Another key reason for SpaceX's success is its focus on reusable rockets. In the past, most rockets were used only once and then thrown away. SpaceX changed this. They learned to land their rocket boosters back on Earth after launch, and they can use them again for new missions. They also catch the nose cones, called fairings, and reuse them. Using rockets many times saves a lot of money and lets SpaceX launch rockets more often. Third, SpaceX built very big factories and launched many thousands of its own Starlink satellites. These satellites need to go into space regularly. This means SpaceX uses its own rockets a lot, which created a big demand for their launch services.
By making its own customer, Starlink, SpaceX helped its rocket production and launch teams get even better and more efficient.
All these new ways of working have made sending things to space much cheaper. Before SpaceX, it was very expensive. Now, more companies and countries can afford to send satellites to space. Even some companies that are direct competitors, like Amazon, have chosen to use SpaceX rockets to launch their own satellites. This shows how reliable and cost-effective SpaceX has become for everyone. Their new Starship rocket is expected to make space travel even cheaper in the future. 7. Working with the Army. SpaceX has become a very important partner for the United States military. The military, also known as the Department of Defense, DoD, now uses SpaceX's Starlink for vital communications. Before, the military mainly used SpaceX for sending rockets into space. Now, the demand for communication services has grown. The money the military paid to SpaceX for these services has grown a lot. For example, in 2022, it was less than $200 million. But by 2025, this amount is expected to reach about $3 billion. This big increase in spending comes from several important agreements. One of these is a large contract from the National Reconnaissance Office, valued at $1.8 billion, for special spy satellites. Other funds are for Starlink services and a new system called StarShield, which the military uses especially to help in Ukraine. Starlink provides internet access in places where normal communication systems are broken or do not exist, making it very helpful for soldiers. This growing role of a private company like SpaceX with the military brings up new questions. People wonder if the interests of a private business will always be the same as the country's national interests. A clear example of this happened during the war in Ukraine. Ukraine relied on Starlink for many of its military actions. However, Elon Musk, the head of SpaceX, made a decision. He refused to provide Starlink services for a specific Ukrainian military operation. He publicly stated he did not want to cause a larger war. Because of his decision, Ukraine was unable to carry out that planned military action. This event showed the U.S. government that it needed more control over such important services. So, the government gave SpaceX a new contract to build a separate, special satellite network. This project is called StarShield, and it is also worth $1.8 billion. StarShield satellites are designed with very high security and strong encryption to protect military communications. The most important part is that the United States government will own and control these StarShield satellites. This means the government, not SpaceX, will have the final say on how they are used for national defense. 8. What happens next? SpaceX is very powerful in space travel today. This creates a big challenge for the U.S. government. The government wants to see more competition in the space industry. It wants to help other companies grow. However, this is hard because SpaceX is very far ahead of everyone else. Some experts compare this situation to early car manufacturing. Ford built cars on a fast production line, while other companies built them slowly by hand. If the government gives all its contracts to only one company, it might stop other companies from growing. This would make competition even harder in the future. Relying so much on one private company like SpaceX also has risks. A private company has its own owners and managers. These people can make big decisions that might affect national missions. This is different from how government programs usually work, where there is more public control. Because of this, the government is working to diversify. For example, the U.S. Space Force has given contracts to other launch companies, such as Rocket Lab, Blue Origin, and United Launch Alliance. NASA also works with different companies for its Artemis missions, which aim to send astronauts back to the Moon. Even with these efforts, experts believe the U.S. will continue to depend on SpaceX for a long time. They say it takes a very long time for a new space company to grow and become a strong market player. They estimate it could take about 15 to 20 years for any other company to truly catch up to SpaceX's level. SpaceX also keeps finding new ways to innovate and improve its rockets and services. This means they are likely to stay ahead of other companies for the foreseeable future. This dependence is both a strength and a possible weakness. The U.S. government needs SpaceX for its important missions. At the same time, it must find ways to support a broader range of companies. This will help make sure America has many strong options for space travel in the years to come. What do you think is the biggest challenge for the U.S. space program now?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.